Have you ever been in a situation where you had something really important to say, but you just felt like your message wasn't quite landing? Or maybe you walked away from a conversation thinking, gosh, I wish I'd expressed that better.
Oh, yeah. That feeling is incredibly common. And it's exactly the challenge we're tackling in this deep dive. We're going to unpack the art of speaking effectively, in pretty much any setting. We'll be drawing on some timeless wisdom from the ancient Greeks all the way up to modern examples. The goal is to help you make your voice heard and your message really stick. We'll give you a solid framework for that.
I love that because it's not just about big speeches, is it? It's like every conversation, every meeting. So, okay, what's the foundational concept? Like
Yeah.
the first big idea we need to get our heads around to be more persuasive, more clear.
Right. To really get good at this, we kind of have to start with Aristotle, his timeless trio of rhetoric, ethos, pathos, and logos. And these aren't just, dusty old Greek terms. They're basically a complete toolkit for connection and impact, just as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago.
Ethos, pathos, logos. Okay, sounds fundamental. Can you break down what each one really means for someone just trying to get their point across?
Absolutely. Let's start with ethos. Basically, this is all about you, the speaker, your personal character, your credibility. Aristotle figured, quite rightly, that we're much more likely to trust and believe people we see as, well, good and knowledgeable. And this ethos thing, it needs three components from you. First up is good sense.
Good sense. What does that mean exactly? Like common sense?
Not quite just common sense. It means really knowing your stuff. Understanding your material so deeply that you can make it simple, cut through the jargon, and guide your audience straight to the core idea effortlessly.
Ah, okay. So it's not about just spitting out facts, but really owning the information so you can tailor it. That feels like a really key difference.
Exactly right. Think about President Roosevelt back during the banking crisis, not the 2008 one, the original big one. He apparently took up the subject of banking and made everyone understand it, even the bankers. How? By using simple words, familiar images, like saying your money was at work, not just sitting in a safe deposit vault. He knew what to include, what to leave out, avoided getting bogged down. That deep grasp, that's good sense. It let him clarify something super complex for a nation that was, frankly, panicking.
Yeah.
Contrast that with, say, Sarah Palin's answer on the bank bailouts in 2008. You could almost hear her trying to straighten out her own understanding as she spoke. That's kind of the opposite of Aristotle's good sense.
Wow, that's a stark contrast. You can almost feel the difference in their command, can't you? Okay, so good sense is one. What's the second part of ethos?
The second is good moral character, which, simply put, means telling the truth and being fair. I actually saw this back when I was a young lawyer. I worked for this guy who was just meticulous, scrupulous about getting the facts right, always unfailingly accurate.
Mm.
And you know what? The judge totally trusted him. Completely. Unlike the lawyers on the other side who might, gloss over facts, if your audience thinks you're lying or dodging, poof, your credibility just vanishes. Aristotle himself said something like, true things and better things are usually easier to prove and believe in. Lies just take so much work.
That makes sense. It's about building that long-term trust, not just winning a quick point.
Got it.
So credibility through understanding
Yeah.
and truthfulness. What's the last piece for ethos?
That would be goodwill. This means genuinely wanting the best for your audience and, importantly, believing the best of them. If you go in thinking your audience is stupid or incapable, you'll probably end up sounding patronizing or trying to manipulate them. That destroys ethos. Think of Roosevelt again, starting his chats with, "my friends." That little phrase, possibly ad-libbed, created this sense of intimacy, of respect. He showed he valued the American people even while asking for their trust during a crisis.
Okay, so credibility, truthfulness, and genuine positive intent towards the audience. That really does sound like a solid foundation for trust. All right, next up was pathos. That's the emotion one, right? Does it mean getting people all worked up?
Not exactly. Pathos is about stirring emotions, yeah, but the type of emotion really matters for persuasion. Positive emotions, things like hope, optimism, they actually tend to calm our primitive brain, the fight or flight part. And that opens up the thinking part, the prefrontal cortex, making people more receptive to rational thought. Think about Ronald Reagan's Morning in America ad. It projected calm, peace, optimism. That allowed people to actually consider his message without feeling defensive.
Huh. So positive feelings actually make people more open to your logic, to really thinking it through instead of just reacting.
Precisely. And the flip side is true too. Negative emotions, fear, anger, they light up that primal part, the amygdala, making rational thought way harder. A really powerful, maybe infamous example is Lyndon Johnson's Daisy ad back in the 60s. It basically implied that if his opponent won, nuclear war was coming. It's super scary, grabs your attention for sure, but it uses fear to pretty much impede rational thought. The underlying idea here is that finding meaning in what you say creates that emotional reaction, that insight, like a good history teacher who makes history feel like stories, giving facts meaning that keeps those kids engaged.
It's fascinating how just like a shift in tone or a pause can totally change how a message feels.
Yeah.
Really drives home how much the how matters, not just the what. Okay, what about logos? That's the logic part, isn't it?
Yet logos is all about clear, sound reasoning, making sure your ideas actually sink in so that people will be able to mull over your ideas long after the speech is over. This means having a really clear, memorable central message, a theme that you weave through everything. John F. Kennedy's inaugural address. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's a fantastic example. Super memorable central message. It's actually a rhetorical device called chiasmus where you invert parallel clauses. Really powerful.
Oh yeah, that quote is iconic. So logos is about making your point undeniable through both the message itself and how you structure it.
Exactly. You're building a clear, compelling case. You can think about it in two main ways. Either you start with a big general truth and show how it applies to your specific situation, that's deductive logic, or you gather up enough specific examples, enough observations, that they lead your audience almost inevitably to a general conclusion, that's inductive logic. The more solid your examples, the more credible your conclusion feels.
Wow. Okay, these ancient ideas are seriously still powerful. Ethos, pathos, logos, it really is like a complete toolkit for connecting. So we've got the foundation of what to say. But understanding it's one thing. Delivering it effectively, that's another beast, right?
Yeah.
How do we make sure our presence, our voice, our body language actually help our words land? Yeah, you're hitting on something critical there. Appearing authentic, sounding natural. Paradoxically, it often takes technique and practice. You're not trying to act like someone else. You want to sound like your best, most confident, relaxed self. But getting there usually requires prep. I remember my law students getting nervous before speaking. A judge once gave me some brilliant advice when I was freaking out in court. Counselor, he said, take a deep breath, think about what you need to tell me, and then tell me that. Just that little shift from panic mode to thoughtful communication is huge. That's great advice. So preparation isn't just memorizing lines, it's internalizing the message so you can access that calmer thinking part of your brain. How does that translate physically, like how we stand and move?
Well, first, you absolutely have to carve out time to practice speaking out loud. If you only read your script silently, you'll sound like a robot reciting something when you actually deliver it. Then, yeah, body language. Your starting point should be a neutral stance. Feet about hip-width apart, knees soft, not locked, and your toes pointed towards your audience. This stance naturally makes you take up a bit more space, which signals confidence. Some people call it power posing. It's the opposite of closed-off postures, like crossed arms or legs or fidgeting, which just scream nervousness. You can even spot this at parties sometimes. If someone's talking to you but their feet are pointed towards the door, they might be mentally halfway out already.
Huh. I'm totally going to be watching people's feet now. Okay, what about hands? They always feel so awkward just hanging there.
They really do, don't they? For hand gestures, a lot of people just don't know what to do. A good default is what's sometimes called actors neutral. Just let your arms hang naturally by your sides, hands may be gently cupped. It's a relaxed resting place. From there, you can make purposeful gestures to emphasize points, rather than just letting nervous energy make you fidget.
Okay, that's practical. A home base for your hands, so they become tools, not distractions. What about eye contact? That can feel intense, especially with a bigger group.
Eye contact is huge for trustworthiness, at least in Western cultures. If you can't meet someone's gaze, you kind of look like you're lying, right? The key isn't to stare someone down or scan the room like a robot. It's more about looking at individuals long enough to give them a thought, like you're saying, here's an idea just for you. This creates these little moments of connection. And please skip those old tricks like imagining the audience in their underwear. It's disrespectful, honestly, and totally undermines the goodwill that ethos requires.
Right, it's about genuine connection, building that trust, person by person. Okay, last piece of delivery. Voice and pacing. How do we nail that?
Your voice and pacing are absolutely critical for conveying emotion for pathos and also just for clarity. Variety is key. Think about rhythm, cadence, tone. They all signal your intention. Take a simple sentence. The circus is coming to town. Say it excitedly. Your pace quickens. Pitch might go up. Say it like you're bored. Pace slows. Pitch drops. See, the variation makes it engaging. And don't underestimate the power of the pause. A well-placed silence, sometimes called a caesura, lets ideas really sink in. It also helps clarify your structure. President Reagan was apparently a master of this. He supposedly marked up his tear down this wall speech with lines and slashes to map out exactly where those powerful pauses would go. Oh, and also just practically, make sure you speak loudly enough so the people in the back row can actually hear you. You're in charge of your volume.
Whoa, yeah. It's amazing how much intention can change the meaning of just a few words. It really connects back to how we want the audience to feel when listening. Okay, so we've got our ethos, pathos, logos foundation, and we've drilled into how to deliver with impact: body, hands, eyes, voice. But even the best delivery can fall flat if the message itself isn't solid, right? Let's circle back and really sharpen our logos, especially spotting and avoiding those sneaky logical traps.
Exactly. This brings us back to strengthening our logos, our actual logic. And it's not just about having that clear, concise, single-sentence central message, ruthlessly editing out everything but the good stuff that serves your audience, like Roosevelt did with banking. We also need to understand and, crucially, avoid logical fallacies. These are basically flaws in reasoning that lead to a faulty conclusion. And sometimes, let's be honest, they're used deliberately to try and mislead or manipulate an audience.
Gotcha. So recognizing these tricks helps us build stronger arguments ourselves and also helps us see through flimsy arguments from others. What are some common ones to watch out for?
Okay, a big one is the straw man argument. This is where you misrepresent or exaggerate what your opponent is saying, and then you attack that weaker, distorted version instead of their actual point. Richard Nixon's famous checkers speech is kind of the classic example. He was facing criticism about campaign funds, right? But he reframed it as if his critics were coming after the family dog, Checkers, this gift his kids loved. He attacked that emotional, exaggerated straw man, not the real issue of potential political influence.
Ah, yeah. That's clever, in a way. But it totally sidesteps the actual substance of the debate, doesn't it? Okay, what else?
Then you've got the ad hominem attack. This is where, instead of engaging with the argument, you just attack the person making it. Donald Trump was pretty well known for this, using nicknames like Little Marco or Crooked Hillary. Now, while those tactics can sometimes be effective at, say, rallying your base, they tend to damage your ethos and pathos with anyone who isn't already convinced. They alienate people and, again, dodge the actual issue.
Right, so it might score points in the moment, but hurts genuine persuasion in the long run. What about arguments that just don't connect logically?
That could be a non sequitur. It literally means it does not follow. The conclusion just doesn't logically flow from the premise. Nixon, again, apparently claimed his financial history proved he didn't take improper gifts because his wife, Pat, is not a quitter. One doesn't really prove the other right. It's a non sequitur. Related to this is post hoc ergo propter hoc, fancy Latin for after this, therefore because of this. It's assuming that because B happened after A must have caused B. Think about, like, air conditioner sales and ice cream sales both spiking in the summer. One doesn't cause the other. The heat causes both. Or those old Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats ads that implied the cereal made kids more attentive. Well, studies suggested it was really just the effect of kids having breakfast at all, not the specific cereal.
Man, it's so easy to fall into those. Correlation definitely isn't causation. What about when someone presents things as only having two options?
Yeah, that's often a false dilemma, or sometimes leads into a slippery slope argument. A false dilemma presents a complex issue, as if there are only two extreme choices, making one look obviously better or worse. A slippery slope argues that taking one small step will inevitably lead to a whole cascade of terrible consequences. We mentioned Johnson's Daisy ad earlier. That's a prime example again. It essentially presented the choice as vote for President Johnson or die from nuclear war. It's a stark, fear-based false dilemma.
Okay, I can really see how, especially when you're passionate or maybe feeling cornered, it's tempting to reach for these tactics to try and win. But let's be real for a second. Some of these, like Nixon's checker speech, they clearly worked, didn't they? They persuaded people, at least in the moment. So if the ultimate goal is persuasion, and these methods sometimes seem effective, why shouldn't we use them? Is that just, part of the game sometimes?
That is a really fair and honestly a critical question to ask. Plato, Aristotle's teacher, actually worried about rhetoric for exactly this reason. He feared that a bad man who learned how to speak well would be able to flatter and then hoodwink an audience. And we see it, right? Propaganda often works by repeating lies, stirring up negative emotions like fear and anger, precisely because those things impede rational thought. Unquote. So yes, sometimes these tactics do seem to work in the short term. However, Aristotle pushed back against Plato on this. He basically contended that anything can be used unjustly, and that's not a good reason to run away from it.
Right.
He believed that rhetoric, when used ethically and skillfully, could actually reveal truth and lead to justice.
Okay, so Aristotle saw higher purpose for it.
Exactly. The key difference lies in the intent and the long-term consequences. While these manipulative tactics might fire up your base, they almost always alienate people who aren't already on your side. They damage your ethos, your credibility, and your pathos, your genuine connection in the long run. If people see you as dishonest or manipulative, forget about building real trust. And arguably, a political system built on lies is inherently more fragile than one that is based in truth. Constantly using negative pathos or just pandering to people who already agree with you doesn't really get you anywhere meaningful in the long term. It doesn't change minds or foster real understanding. So for Aristotle, the true purpose of rhetoric wasn't just winning, it was fundamentally a search for truth.
A search for truth, not
Yeah.
just manipulation.
Yeah. Precisely.
Yeah.
So if there's one big thing to take away from this whole deep dive, maybe it's this. Becoming a truly effective speaker, whether you're giving a formal presentation, navigating a tough negotiation, or just having a conversation, it isn't about pretending to be someone else or mastering tricks. It's really about being your most authentic, prepared, and purposeful self. It's about combining that genuine credibility ethos with a clear, logical message logos and a heartfelt connection with your audience pathos. Ultimately, it boils down to serving your audience and trying to illuminate truth.
I really love that. It feels simple, but also quite profound. It shifts the whole goal from just winning an argument to connecting and serving. That actually makes the idea of public speaking feel much more empowering and, frankly, less terrifying. Thanks so much for breaking all that down for us. And if you're feeling inspired to put these powerful insights into practice and maybe dive even deeper into mastering your communication, definitely check out the links to the full course, How to Speak Effectively in Any Setting. They're right there in the description below.
Yeah, and we'd genuinely love to hear from you too. Let us know in the comments which idea really resonated with you, or maybe share one speaking habit you feel inspired to work on after listening to this deep dive.
And here's something to think about. Every single time you choose to speak with truth, with clarity, with that goodwill we talked about, you're not just sending out a message. You're actually helping to shape the world around you one conversation at a time.